Okay, you see the screen? Pluto again? Give me a thumbs up, please. If you see the screen. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, thank you, Robert. So Pluto rules the spiritual body. It's a dual planet. It can be highly spiritual or grossly materialistic. Hidden forces. What other element of what we've discussed so far deals with hidden forces or something that's behind the scenes? That's Scorpio, because Pluto is the co-ruler of Scorpio. I neglected to tell you that Neptune rules Pisces and Uranus rules Aquarius. Pluto is another planet that'll throw the baby out with the bathwater. And it's looking for profound and intense change. And again, it does not consider the consequences. Neither does it consider the effect on others. It rules transition, ESP. Pluto governs the universal cooperation, universal welfare urges. Keyword is cooperation, which is its best quality. Its worst quality is coercion. And you would think with all of the adjectives and descriptions that have been listed about Pluto, that the key word cooperation and also conformity. And conformity is part of coercion. But also conformity allows more people to benefit from looking out for one another. Anybody have any questions? Peg, are you still there? Because
Yes.
I can't get to my chat. Oh, never mind, I got it. Never mind, I got it. Thank you. Mercury takes about 89, 90 days, 3 months to go through the zodiac. Transit for Pluto is 248 years, and that's why it's so influential with the United States right now. Because we're coming up onto we're in our 244th year. We're getting ready for a big Pluto transit. So how is that going to affect things? Will people step up and look at how to benefit everybody? Or will they try to take advantage of those who are weaker rather than provide something to make them stronger? Will we continue with old ways of thinking? Or will we start transitioning to more progressive ways of thinking? Will we look at the safety of the earth and of life on Earth? Will we acknowledge the contributions of everyone and the benefit of a scientific approach in studying anything? Astrology is considered a science because it has been proven through observation repeatedly. And that's what science does. It sets up situations and it proves the same results over and over. So if you're on the planets worksheet.
Vanessa, it's Lori
Yes.
here. Vanessa, last week we ended at Jupiter and we haven't covered Saturn.
Okay, then I'll go back to Saturn.
Thank you.
Not a problem. There it is. Saturn is poverty, restrictions, concentration. The metal for Saturn is lead. Saturn moves very carefully. Saturn wants to be safe. Saturn wants to keep its stuff and keep it in good order. Saturn is organized, very structured. Saturn and Jupiter both are business planets. Because you need structure and order in order to work a business. And you need vision and philosophy and magnanimity and showmanship in order to get people to come into things with you. You also want your business to expand. So there, Jupiter is the planet of expansion. Saturn is cold and calculating. Jupiter rules Thursday. Saturn is Saturday. It is a discordant planet. It's the great malefic, along with Mars. Mars is a malefic planet and Saturn is the great malefic. Because it wants to restrict anything. You know, lead, think of the metal lead. Lead is very dense. And the amount of lead to its weight is quite considerable. It is smaller than you would imagine it being that heavy. Originally, Saturn was also considered the ruler for Aquarius. Saturn can lay in wait until the situation is right. And then they will move. They're very patient. Saturn can be manipulative because they can see a couple of steps ahead because they're so busy sitting there thinking and waiting and being patient and observing what's going on. So rather than force, they would rather manipulate somebody into doing something in any one particular direction. I do not mean to imply that Saturn, well, it's the great malefic, yeah, so it's a difficult planet. However, those difficulties develop discipline, make one stop and think and lay some careful plans. think I did share that I was a teacher, and I know one of the aphorisms that was bandied about was those who fail to plan to fail. And that certainly is not Saturn. Saturn can be cold and calculating, and they hoard their treasures. They would rather not be seen taking initiative, but rather laying the seeds for others to move in the direction in which they want to go. So let's look at this. It rules the bones, cartilage, and the spleen. It's a business planet, discordant, magnetic, masculine. You can read. Saturn governs the safety urges. Saturn's best quality is system. If you want it organized, ask somebody who is influenced by Saturn. Step by step by step by step. And their worst quality is selfishness. Pay particular attention to those safety urges when you're dealing with Saturn, because that's, they want to make sure that everything is solid and that nothing will necessarily fall through. They know how to appease those in authority, although they can be in authority too. However, they can make some good progress. Although he left public life in disgrace, Richard Nixon also opened China to the United States. So he did expand a different relationship. And Saturn rules Capricorn. Richard Nixon was a Capricorn. I will remember somebody's sign before I'll remember their name. Oh yeah, you're that Leo. I remember. What's your name again? Okay. Saturn knows how to establish boundaries. And they will enforce the rules. They want the rules. They love the rules. Makes them feel safe. They have no problem accepting responsibility. They're conservative and traditional. The key word is crystallization. And again, Saturn takes 29 to 30 years to travel the zodiac. I'm going to read the arcanum for Saturn, and then I'll read the arcanum for Pluto. And major arcanum associated with Saturn is number 15, the Black Magician. The most unprofitable thing in the world is selfishness. Pride and rebellion but enchain the soul to lower spheres. But all trials and misfortunes accepted with resignation to the supreme will are an accomplished progress, bringing an eternal reward. Cease to rely upon thy own power and wisdom and labor to disengage thyself from pride and selfishness, which but bind thee to matter, mortality, and evil fate. So Capricorn, well, Saturn needs to learn how to change, not necessarily Capricorns, because although they're not necessarily pit bulls, but pit bulls get a bad rap because they are the sweetest, most loving dogs. Their bad rap comes from those who have trained them differently, but they really are. They're the sweetest animals. And Capricorns are very loving and gentle and caring and nurturing and all of that other good stuff. They've got that selfishness right in the back. So all of the other things tend apply as well, but yeah, they are generous and you do feel safe around a Capricorn. And certainly somebody with a prominent Saturn, they'll seem to be quite reserved and quite conservative, but there is a sense of security. You know where they're coming from. And Pluto, the major arcanum card that's associated with Pluto is the materialist. It's arcanum 22 or 0. Annihilation or eternal progress. Atheism or devotion. Remember, it can be extremely spiritual or extremely materialistic. All things physical pass away, and that before the soul can pass to higher realms, every debt to nature must be paid to the utmost farthing. Imprudence threatens to encompass thy ruin, and thou wilt be called upon to pay for thy folly unless thou immediately change thy ways. So Pluto, because it's the 10th planet, it also talks about the cycle of life. As 10 is the next level. 10 goes into the next level. Jod He Vahe rules the underworld. It also looks at things that you hide from yourself. And how would you know those things? By the position of the planet in the houses, which we will go to next. But before I do that, anybody looking for anything? Okay. Now that we've covered both of the planets, the color of Saturn is, it's leaden, it's blue. Fatality and black magic. Color of Uranus is dazzling white. Neptune is an iridescence. And blue is ultraviolet or black. The underworld. The good old Pluto. So this is definitely a more detailed version of this next chart is in Google Drive. And we're looking at the table of essential dignities. This table of essential dignities, as the headings indicate, talk about the planets and the signs, which planets rule which signs, which planets are in detriment, and which planets are in exaltation. On the more detailed chart, there's also an indication of which planets, which signs are expressed harmoniously in that planet and which are not expressed as inharmoniously. Now, somebody asked last week, I talked about detriment and fall, and these signs are generally opposite of what that planet expresses. So these signs have to find a way to express themselves in a planet that they are termed in detriment or in fall. Now here you see all of the planets, the rule, and you don't have to copy this down because there is a, it'll take too long. And there is a handout and it is already in Google Drive, so you can just print it out. But this is going to be very important for when we get to aspects. You want to know the table of essential dignities. Now, on this table of essential dignities, I've only addressed the planets and the signs. Because on the more detailed chart, there's also a table of accidental dignities. And the accidental dignities talk about the houses, and the 4 parts of the houses that we've covered, 4 areas of the signs and the 4 areas of the planets. So there we go. We're going to the mundane houses. And what do we have first? The Trinity. The houses, the Trinity of the houses are life. And that Trinity happens to be the fire signs, and that's 1, 5, and 9. Again, you can copy this, but it is on the table of essential dignities. Trinity of wealth, the earth signs 2, 6, and 10. Association 3, 7, 11. Air. Social affability. And psychism 4, 8, and 12, which are the water signs. So after the Trinity, we look at the volume of the houses, and that's how strongly they project the concerns of the house. And there are 3 volumes: angular, succedent, and cadent. And the angular houses are 1, 4, 7, and 10. And they are very strong. They project their needs and their concerns loudly. Think of the houses as auditoriums, and there are different places that you want to sit in an auditorium, depending on the sound that you want to get, or depending on the view that you want to see. And that's what we're talking about here with angular, succedent, and cadent houses. Now, on the table of accidental dignities, it talks about weak and very weak. I'm not going to address that here. We're just going to look at these 3 major volumes. Succedent houses are 2, 5, 8, and 11. And the cadent houses 3, 6, 9, and 12. Now, the angular houses, to what signs do they associate? 1, Aries, 4, Cancer, 7, Libra, 10, Capricorn. And those are the movable signs, the pioneers. Me, 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 me. Let's keep going. Come on, let's go. Come on, come on, come on. And the succeeding houses, 2, Taurus, 5, Leo, 8, Scorpio, 11, Aquarius. Fixed signs. The perfectors. So they have a steadiness of movement, a steadiness of ambition, a steadiness of progress. And the Caden houses, they are the Caden houses are preparing for change. A cadence in music is right before it comes back to the main theme or to the one. And so the Caden houses are the houses that are right before the angular houses. 3, 6, 9, and 12. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And these associations are important to make. After the volume, we're going to look at the society. The society of houses. There are personal, companionship houses, and public houses. And the personal houses are 12, 1, 2, and 3. And they focus on one's private life. The personal sorrows, your personal body, your personal property, your siblings, your personal thoughts. This will make more sense as we go through the more detailed descriptions of the houses. But also notice, if you're looking at the blank wheel, notice where they are on the wheel. The 12th house is right above the horizon. And the next 3 houses are at in the bottom left corner of the blank wheel. They're below the horizon, they're private. The companionship houses 4, 5, 6, and 7. So you're starting to come up. You're starting to come up out from underneath the horizon. These are the other houses. They deal with other people, other things that don't hold the same sense of privacy. And the public houses are up above the horizon, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And these are matters that become widely known and are subject to great development or significant development. We're not finished. Duality. And the duality of the planets. There are 2 sets of dualities. There's East and West. And the East houses are 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. Where the native gets to have influence over their environment. And the West houses where the native is influenced by the environment. That's not controlled, but influenced by the environment. And North and South, above the horizon and below the horizon. Above the horizon, things gain recognition. And if anybody knows anything about the 12th house, why the heck is that in there? Well, you know, those things are kept secret with effort. But kept secret nonetheless. And as well, it's associated with a water sign, and it's associated with Neptune. So those things all conspire to keep secrets. And then below the horizon, these are secret, yeah, but they're more private than secret. And then we get to deal with the sign, with the houses on a whole. So the first house is also ruled by the ascendant. And the ascendant is above, well, actually it's a personal house because the first house is below the horizon. But it's a little bit more visible than the other houses because the ascendant. And if you look at an aspectarian, you know that all of the planets are recorded, have aspects recorded to the ascendant. The ascendant is the first impressions. The ascendant talks about new beginnings, and that's the first house. The ascendant rules the physical body and one's sense of identity, their appearance. Talks about their station or their in life and or their caste, and that's the teacher in me coming out again. First house is the emergence of the individual. It is an angular house, so it's strong, and it's on the east side of the chart, so it exerts influence over its environment rather than have to take its environment and do something with it, which is the west side. So it's beginnings and birth. Influences the health and personal appearance. Personality, temperament, and character. So when you're delineating a horoscope, the ascendant is an important house to interpret when you're looking at the personality and temperament of a person. It is one of the important factors. If you're going naturally through the zodiac, the first house is ruled by Aries, and Aries is ruled by Mars. So, boom, right there in your face. This is me. Beginnings. Pursuing desires. Assertiveness. So in quick and dirty in the wheel, when you're looking at the wheel of mundane houses, some bullets that you might want to include in that wheel is personality, health, physical body, and personal power. House number 2. Oh my. I just looked at the time. The Trinity of Wealth is in the second house. Again, if we're going through the zodiac, the second house would be associated with Taurus and Venus, because it is part of the Trinity of Wealth. Is a succeeding house, so it's something that's pursued steadily. It's below the horizon. So that's when HR tells you not to tell everybody how much money you make. It's east of the horizon, so the native has ability to make changes to their personal possessions. It talks about money, finance, and possessions. Those are the bullet points that you put in the wheel. But also very important coming out of the second house is personal values. Mores, in a sense, things that you value. Things that you hold dear. Talks about physical comfort. It expresses in a native's self-worth. Whoops, let me go back. Let me go back. I really recommend that you carefully read the information that's in astrological signatures, because it fleshes these words out in a different kind of detail. Again, Taurus, Venus, comfort, finance, possessions, worth, value. These are the things that are governed by these are the things that are governed by the second house. Now let's go to the third house. By livelihood, it means that your job or the area, not so much your job, but the area of how you maintain yourself, how you keep a roof over your head, what kind of roof you keep over your head. Talks about your personal finances, how you manage them, and whatever other resources that you have, how you manage them. That's the second house. It can hoard a little. Thank you, Peg. Now remember, the 10th and the second house are in the same trinity of wealth, so they go hand in hand. That 10th house is your career, your how you are visible to the world, your reputation. But the second house is that wealth that comes from your career and your reputation. The rising sign, again, as Peg did say, the rising sign is the sign at the first house, on the first house, on the cusp of the first house. It's if you divide the circle into 4 areas. The horizontal line across on the left side indicates the rising sign or the cusp of the first house, the ascendant. Yeah, and that is something that you need to get used to as well. The chart does not follow a compass rose, because the east side is on the left, and many times you think of the east as on the right if you're looking at a map, if you're looking at a traditional map. Let's go to the third house. The Trinity of associations: Gemini, Mercury. So what do you know about Gemini and Mercury? And those are the concerns of the third house. It's below the horizon, so it's early education, definitely communication, personal ideas and thoughts, siblings, short journeys, in-laws, neighbors, your immediate environment, it is also where you tend to engage a bit more diplomacy in getting along with people, because you got to live with them. Communication, intellect, speech, self-expression, writing, short journeys, neighbors, communication. Too fast. Also, buried emotions. I can't put this up because it's going to immediately go to, I think it's going to immediately go to the fourth house. But it also talks about hidden things, buried emotions, and conditions at the close of life. No, that's the fourth house. Excuse me. My bad. Excuse me. So let's look at the fourth house. And apparently I did not put the animations with the fourth house, because everything is right there for you to see. The fourth house is an angular house, so it broadcasts its concerns loudly. It's below the horizon, so it is something that is private. Cancer and the moon is in the fourth house, or is associated with the fourth house. It's not in the fourth house, but it's associated with the fourth house. You know, look at the bottom bullet. It concerns conditions at the close of life. And since it's Cancer, and you know, Cancer is considered nurturing and motherly, you would think that the fourth house would talk about the mother or female relative, but it actually talks about the father. The fourth house concerns the father because the fourth house also deals with ancestry. The fourth house concerns your sense of belonging, your inherited tendencies. So these are all things that you're considering when you're looking at the planets and the signs in the houses, on the cusp of the houses, the sign associated with the planet in the house, the aspects to those houses. You can study astrology for the rest of your life. Isn't that wonderful? You never have to stop learning. It's a wonderful thing. I don't know, Nancy. The references that I have, okay, that I've seen have it the other way around. I think the 10th house is the more dominant parent, and most often the most dominant parent is the mother, because the mother has the greatest influence on the on your establishing yourself and the way you think, on nurturing and growing the seed. And then Peg has put in a wonderful explanation as well. I'm reading an interesting book now. Oh, I can't think of the name. It's got a nice red cover, but it says it's talking about the traditional and modern and newer association of planets and signs, and that sometimes it appears to the author that the concerns of the planets and the signs seem arbitrary and have not considered the root, the influence, the archetypes that from which the original rulers and signs came. Yes, everything needs to grow. However, man started transportation by walking, and then they discovered the wheel, and then they domesticated animals, but it's still transportation. And then they put some power, some outside power to it that allowed man to sit in something, but it's still transportation. So it does change, but the basis for it doesn't necessarily change. We've got time for one more house. And we'll look at the fifth house. And the fifth house looks at agreed, Mike. That's why it's the dominant parent, and not it's most likely the 10th house is most often associated with the mother, according to Zane, and it's also called the dominant parent. And your dominant parent could have been your father. Mother stuff is kind of represented by the moon, but it's nurturing, because mother stuff can also be associated with Venus, and with Mars for protection. There are so many factors that have to be considered that to isolate just one thing does yourself a disservice. So let's look at the fifth house. Fifth house ruled by Leo and the sun. Fifth house is good times. Trinity of life. Companionship below the horizon. Fifth house is the risk-taking. Self-expression, creativity, pregnancy. So that's mothering stuff too. And here we're looking at the fifth house. Fifth house is children and pleasure, gambling and sports. Restaurants, taverns, bars, museums, stages, juke joints. It can also be considered a house of good fortune. This is where the guilt goes on. G-I-L-T, not G-U-I-L-T. Unfortunately, we can, as this is a Church of Light class, it's sponsored by the Church of Light, we are cannot, Peg and I cannot address anything by other authors specifically. And as there is so much information out there, it is to your advantage to study one school of thought and then branch out into others, because there is so much information out there, and there's so many different ways of looking at things. Get one thing done first, and then investigate others. Because it is the volume of information can be overwhelming. So we're done now. I'm not going to go into the next house. Because there are only 6 minutes left. What the heck? Let's do it. It's the sixth house. For 6 minutes, we'll do the sixth house. The sixth house is below the horizon. It is a Caden house. It's the house of wealth. It's a house of wealth. It's a house of service. Associated with Virgo and Mercury. The house of employees or servants. Your co-workers. Everyday health, routines, rituals, work environment. Let's go back to the wheel, because I didn't give you the short and dirty descriptions that you might want to put in the wheel for the third house, the fourth house, and the sixth, and the third house through the sixth house. So let me do that quickly now. In the third house, we want thoughts, studies and hobbies, short journeys, siblings and relatives. And neighbors. Nancy, when I was growing up, part of growing up was learning how to play cards. And you were taught to keep your cards close to your chest so that you don't show anybody else what's going on. That's what kept close to the chest means. The fourth house is home, real estate, father, or the less dominant parent, end of things and secrets. The fifth house is pregnancy, speculation, children, love affairs, entertainment. Now, this is just a short and dirty list. It's not all inclusive. You've got to do some more reading. And the sixth house is work, illness, food, co-workers, and employees. Oh, all of the information about the houses has already been published to Google Drive. I will put the information about aspects on Google Drive over the weekend so that they can be, or by the weekend, it could be earlier. Because I anticipate starting aspects during the latter part of next week's class. So, with the information that you have so far, you have to make associations. You want to associate the planets with the signs with the planets with the houses, the signs with the houses, the planets and the signs with the houses. Because they all express differently depending on who they're with. Just like you do. You're different with your family than you are with your buddies, than you are at work. And that's how you're looking at everything in an astrological chart. You have to take all of these things into consideration. So take a little time and certainly read serial number 47 from Astrological Signatures. If you have the Sacred Tarot, refer to the major arcanum cards for the signs and the planets. And your impressions of that material will broaden your understanding of the signs and the planets and allow you to start juggling them to put them together. If you're more familiar with the Sacred Tarot, think of how you read cards when they're in different positions. And that's the same thing you're going to do when you're reading a chart. Or it's similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. You have to take and mix it up and see how each gets along with the other. So thank you. It's been great. You have my email address. If not, let me give it to you again. So if you have any questions or you need something. We're going to finish up the houses and start the aspects. We might begin, when we're doing the aspects, you're going to need pencil and paper. Because it'll make although we have programs that allow you to just look at an aspectarian and know what planets are making which aspects to whom, it's a good idea to be a little bit more familiar with the nitty-gritty of it. Well, I first started doing charts, I did it by hand. However, it also allowed me to study the chart before, by the time I was finished, I had really studied the chart because I had to calculate all of these positions of the planets and the signs and the houses and the aspects. So you're going to need pencil and paper. And I will definitely be publishing a chart, a birth chart, or an astrological chart, not necessarily a birth chart, but I'll be publishing an astrological chart so that you can work on figuring out aspects. So that's it. Peg, would you please read the closing ritual?